Right. So with that, we are moving to our next presenter, Hermann. Some of you know him as a almost celebrity, I believe. And that's about half this room, because I think about half this room are from Switzerland and half of you are immigrants. And he's going to talk about immigration in Switzerland. And we will see that he's debunking some myths that we all have.
Thank you. Thanks. So, I'm going to tell you a short story about myths and misconceptions concerning immigration in Switzerland. And let's start with chapter 1. Let's start with our first cast, the political right. And actually, I think you expect that the political right has some misconception about immigration. And for example, known sentence and known fear is immigration leads to Islamization. That's a fear that particularly rise after 9/11. You have this fear not only in Switzerland. You perhaps know Thilo Sarrazin from Germany, who raised this fear in Germany. You have it in the Netherlands, everywhere else. And here you see an ad, a political ad, which states, "Are Muslims soon in majority in Switzerland?" And as every myth, it also bases on some truth, because, you know, it starts here with 99. We had 2.2% of Muslims in Switzerland. Then 10 years after, 4.5. So it more than doubled. So you actually, this was at 2004. You can actually estimate that it goes on. So it's 9% to 10, 18%, 36%, and then 72%, and 2040. So don't ask me why they didn't put 2050, because then we would have 144% of Muslims. But actually, it's clear that's propaganda. But also, you know, only this short-term measure, this short-term trend exploration you have here between 2000 and 2010. Actually, when you look at it now, as we know how many there have been in 2010, they were only 5%. So it only rise from 4.5 to 5%. So be cautious with trend explorations. The next chapter takes us to a next person or a next role in our short story. That's the general public. And there, as you know, next years we will have certain initiatives we Swiss have to vote for, and it deals with immigration in Switzerland and the mass immigration in Switzerland. And actually this is very controversial, but something that is not controversial is the reason for this mass immigration. Because everybody thinks that's because of this agreement with the EU about free movement of persons. And if you look at these migration numbers, you really see they are rising. And they are rising. You see, net migration means that immigration minus emigration. And so they rise a lot. So we have almost 60,000 persons coming to Switzerland every year. But if you look at how they rise, and if you know when this agreement started, it only started 2007. But this rise in immigration started in the late 90s. So actually there must be another driving force, and this real driving force is the structural change in our industry. We have a quest for good educated, highly educated people, and our education system doesn't provide enough. So that's actually the main reason, and it's not very sure whether you can stop this movement with the cancelling of this agreement. Then we have the liberal media. Perhaps you notice we had a story this spring that they saw that Germans are returning home more and more in greater and greater numbers. So actually the narrative was lonely Germans are going home because they suffering the Swiss disease, they don't make any friends, and they're suffering the bad discourse about Germans in Switzerland. And if you look from the perspective of Germany, you see how many Germans went to Switzerland from 2007 to 2012, and actually this somehow confirms this idea that they're going back, because you have more and more going back, so actually they're homesick, you should think. They're homesick because of the Swiss not being nice to them. But if you look and compare it to whole Northwestern Europe, you actually see exactly the same trend. So they are not going home only from Switzerland, but from whole Northwestern Europe. And if you look at the numbers, you see that there are as many Germans coming to Switzerland and staying there as the whole Northwestern Europe as a whole. And then you can also look at countries from the other OECD, you see the same pattern. So actually, this has to do something with the boom in Germany, the creating of jobs in Germany, because it affects every part of the world, and it not only affects Switzerland. Even, you see, Switzerland even overtook Northwestern Europe these last years, and there is no country, as few Germans go back compared to the many that are coming as Switzerland. So also a miss we just looked at. Then we have another actor in our play. These are the foreign observers. And they often somehow think that Switzerland is a stronghold of xenophobia. We also had this discussion this summer, because perhaps you heard it, of Frau Winfrey didn't got her handbag in the Bahnhofstrasse. So actually there was a discourse about xenophobia in Switzerland. So these are the headlines of international media. So this confirms this dubious image Switzerland has. But here again, let's go into the number and crash the myth. Because if you look at this statistic collected by the OECD in 16 European countries, this statistic is based on surveys. They asked the immigrants in these countries how much they feel discriminated because of their origin. And so you look where Switzerland is. Only in Luxembourg, fewer immigrants feel discriminated than in Switzerland. And on the other hand, you have Greece, Austria, and the Netherlands, where not most, but the bigger share of immigrants feel discriminated. So it's not only poor Greece, it's also the rich Netherlands. So what are the reasons for this poor image of Switzerland? I think the main reason actually is our political system, direct democracy. Because you don't have to understand this graphic at all, but you can if you like. But what you have to look at is this gap, this distance between the elite, the parliament, and the people in the question of immigration. So there's no political issue with the bigger divide between the general public and the elite than immigration. And because of our system, we vote about this directly, and then you see this gap, and you see that the elite would do other than the general public, the people. And because of that, we have a lot of fights, we have a lot of propaganda like that, and people from abroad think the Swiss are so xenophobic because they talk all the time and they ban minarets and so on, and so on. And you don't know where the Germans would ban minarets if they would have the possibility to do it. And then it also fits in the narrative of the image of Switzerland, because if you look at Swiss internationally, we only are appearing as Swiss bankers in James Bond movies, where we are somehow uptight, money-hoarding Swiss, take away the money from everybody else. And actually this image people have internationally from Switzerland very well fits to this image of xenophobia. Perhaps you remember the Netherlands. They were way up in this ranking, but they don't fit in this narrative, because Dutch people are progressive, joyful, and they are pot-smoking, they are liberal, so actually they can't be racistic or xenophobic. So actually these are my 4 myths I wanted to destroy. This is my cast, and my question is, what's your role in this play, in this short story of myths and misconception about immigration? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It was very nice, very interesting, very provocative. And as a foreign observer, I must say, when you say Switzerland, I think about chocolate and cheese and not the bankers. So there's also positive stuff, I guess, both ways. About this topic, I always wondered about, I don't know if you study these, but I always wondered about sort of a 10, 20 years future about immigration, aging population and this relationship. Do you expect that there's going to be a lot more heated discussions because there's going to be more immigration happening all over Europe or even globally?
Yeah, the question is whether we will have climate refugees or not, but on the other hand, you have to know that more and more parts of this world, they're suffering from decreasing population. China has this problem, Eastern Europe has this problem, so actually we are very, very lucky with this problem of having a lot of people, and I don't think this will go on very soon. You saw it with Germany. The second wave was from Southern Europe, but Southern Europe also will rise again, so I'm very positive that actually we now think that this is going on forever. We had this situation in the 60s where Professor Kneschaueck, he made a prognosis and said that 10 million people will live in Switzerland by year 2000, but they were less than 8 million, because you always tend to to extrapolate your trend, and then, but the trends will never go on as we think they do.
Very good. Thank you again. I guess we will only have to wait and see in terms of what happens with the immigration, and hopefully it will be in a balanced way and we won't have climate change pressures.